Howdy YouTube. Today I'm taking Lil Red Six out to some trails west of my current home, which is Jackson, Missouri. And I figured, you know, on the way out there, like I said in my last video, I've never really talked much about the specs of Lil Red Six or the story of Lil Red Six, which is an interesting one, to put it lightly. And I guess I could start there. First, let's go back to when I was 16. At age 16, I decided, really before age 16, I decided that I wanted a Jeep. I kind of remember sitting at one of the main roads in my area, and I saw a Cherokee pull in front of my mom's minivan at the time, and I just said, "Mom, I want one of those when I turn 16. She said, "Those things are gas guzzlers. You probably don't need one of those." But I guess it kind of stuck, because at 16, about 2 months into me being 16, I bought a 2000 Grand Cherokee, a WJ, which I loved. Loved the WJ. It was a great ride. I really liked how that thing would flex more naturally with both the rear axle and the front axle. Like with those coil springs, it would really flex good. And it had some nicer accommodations on the inside for like just creature comforts in a way. But I ended up smoking a deer on the way home one night, and my Grand Cherokee hit the deer on this left-hand turn, and all I remember seeing, because I was really tired, it was like 11 o'clock at night, so I was kind of relaxed, and maybe that's why I didn't get hurt in the process. But I see a flash of light, bam, and the next thing I see is my Jeep going into the ditch, and then on the other side of the ditch was a levee embankment. And I hit that levee embankment, and the Jeep just went in it like full roller coaster tycoon flipping. And I rolled it either 2 or 3 times side to side. My airbags didn't go off, but it shattered my driver's side window, and the windshield was cracked, but it never actually fell in until later on. And the like passenger rear was like dented in really bad. And I don't remember really the thing happening. It was just like a blur. It was just like land on all 4 wheels, and I'm like, what just happened? But in the process of that, you know, I was getting slung back and forth like this. My hat actually went out the window, which tells me if I wasn't buckled in, my head and body probably would have gone out the window, and I probably would have been sliced in half. So luckily, that didn't happen. I called my mom, she came and got me, the cops showed up, asked if I was impaired. I'm like, no, I was just ready to be home. I was tired, and all of a sudden, flash of light, hit a deer, and the deer was dead just a little ways down the road, so they knew I actually smoked the deer. All that being said, everything was fine. I went to work 2 days later. I took the next day off just to go looking, and I actually saw Lil Red Six that day at a lot close to where I live now, ironically. And I saw Lil Red Six, and I was like, you know what? This would be a good one if I don't find anything better. It's got a few blemishes, but I think I can fix everything that's wrong with it. It kind of wanders when it steers, and I'll keep looking. Next day I go to work, I show up at work, and they fire me on the spot. I think it might have had to do with the fact that the reason I was out so late the night I hit the deer was because I was being trained after hours, because my boss was too stubborn to pay me to be trained on company hours. So I went to one of my coworkers' house to be trained that night, hit the deer on the way home. So I think it might have been they were a little worried about me suing them or something like that, and they were kind of like trying to get the edge on me. But then he also said, my son needs a job, he can't find work anywhere else, which was true. So I got kicked off because I was the lowest man on the totem pole. nonetheless, I just picked myself up off the ground, didn't have a car, didn't have a job. This was roughly age 19, by the way. And I was like, you know what? Just gonna have to figure it out. So a couple weeks went by. I got a job in government, city government, and for part-time at that point, but 6 months down the road, I had a full-time job there. That being said, after I got my part-time job at the city, I was like, you know what? Let's go and see if I can get that red Cherokee. So I went there, and I wheel and dealed them down about $3,000 and got this thing with 124,000 miles on it in 2014, June 2nd of 2014. It's my sister's birthday, that's how I remember. And you know, it had like a little hole in the floorboard on the passenger side that I knew I was gonna have to patch. The track bar on the front was loose, that's why it wandered on the road, and they fixed that for me, put a new battery in it, and I bought it, you know, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make this thing work. If I don't like it, I'll make it work until I get myself a Wrangler. And you know, from there it took off. I drove it around with street tires for the first year, and then I put 235, 75, 15s Duratracs on it, which are a 29-inch tire, right at 29 inches. And I rode those for 50,000 miles, and that was the first time I went to Knoxville, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. In 2017, on Labor Day week, I was driving towards work because I got called in. Somebody left their keys in their home in Illinois, which is a little ways from where I worked at the time. So they asked me, hey, would you go to the shop and let this guy in? I said, sure, why not? And as I'm driving there, I pull up to a light that is kind of notorious for being slow. Decide to just wait it out. I'm not gonna run this thing. I'm just sitting there waiting. It's taking forever. And it finally turns green. I kind of gas it more than normal, but not much more. It was just frustration, you know, just and I go through this long left-hand turn that signal has, and out of the corner of my right eye, I see a motion like this coming at me. And I look over, at the same time, I move my foot off the gas and started hitting the brake, and then I went to full locking the brakes because a truck was barreling at me doing 55 miles an hour. So then I got smoked in the front end of the Jeep. It ripped off the grill and tweaked the frame rails about, on the passenger side, probably 4 inches out, and on the driver's side, probably like 2 inches out. And I ultimately had to, the Jeep was down for a month, let's just put it that way. And it was totaled. I bought it back from the insurance for $450 something, if I remember right. My dad and I bought a second 2001 Cherokee. I'll show some pictures in here. And we combined the two Jeeps, good parts, because that 2001 had been rear-ended, and my 99 obviously hadn't been rear-ended. And we just combined the two parts, straightened the frame rails, re-welded the cross member up there, built my custom front bumper, and got it all ready to go by October 1st, which was a miracle that we got all that done. That being said, after October 1st, I was like, you know what? I'm confident in the work my dad and I did. I didn't even get it aligned. I just had to press on a new power steering pump pulley, put a new radiator on it, fill it back up with coolant, and go. And it worked. My cousin Ryan and I, we went all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee, and then ultimately Charlotte, North Carolina in this Jeep, like a month after we got it fixed. So I kind of trial and errored it at home, made sure it was still running good, and then we went to Knoxville, and that's probably where my love for off-roading started. Not that I didn't do it before then. I did like off-roading before then when I was a kid on my parents' farm, but I never really took off with it. And Knoxville kind of got me to the point that I started taking off with it. Then I did some small stuff around the area, and I never knew really where to go. Go figure, another, let's say, that was 2018. Let's say, let's skip forward to 2021, just to make it simple. I finally lift the Jeep 2 inches. I got budget leaf spring lift in the rear. I got a puck lift in the front right now. It's 1.75. I got Quadratec 2-inch lift shocks, and I got the sway bar deleted now. And I put on 265/70 R16 rims from the 2001, the Icon rims. I took them from that Jeep, put them on this one, and I realized how bent the original rims were on the 99, because now these 2001 rims, they run like a dream in comparison. So that being said, I finally get the Jeep lifted. Then I realize, man, I am pushing this transmission to its limits in terms of heat, so I put a trans cooler on it. Then I put the E-fan override switch on it, and then I might have had those two backwards. I think I did the fan first and then the trans cooler next. Regardless, basically the same month it happened. And then, you know, I got Onyx Off-Road. I saw Nate from Dirt Lifestyle always talking about Onyx Off-Road and his sponsorships and his endorsements, and just watching him use it, I was like, man, I need to try this app. So I got it, and in my area there wasn't a lot of featured trails, but there was like tons of forestry routes. So I was like, you know what? I've been over to Shawnee once with a friend, and he showed me that there is stuff over there. Let's go and explore it to its fullest. So 2022 rolls around, and I just started going and finding stuff. And so far, Lil Red Six with just factory open gears and the factory transfer case, the factory ratio, and the factory 4.0 and the AW4 have kept up. I just had to do, you know, the small mods to prep it for doing this. And I've had great luck. And, you know, it's just, for me, a lot of off-roading is common sense, you know, and knowing what your vehicle's capable of. And the only way to know what your vehicle's capable of is to go and just subtly push it a little bit more until you get to the point that you're either going, wow, I feel like I'm gonna flip this thing any minute now, or B, your vehicle flips. Hopefully you don't get the vehicle flipping part first. I've done that twice now. Because after we got the parts off of the 2001 that I needed for the 99 here, we actually flipped that Jeep, me and some friends. So I kind of got a good reference point of what a XJ can do. Especially if you take the front sway bar off and let the front axle do more of the flexing work, and let the rear axle be your, like, your foundation or your base, the thing that keeps you grounded. If you can keep those rear axles planted, or the rear wheels, I should say, of the axle back there, planted where it stays on the ground, really the front wheels just help assist pull the rear wheels to the obstacle, and then the rear wheels do all the work. And that's the beautiful thing about the Jeep Cherokee XJ, is that out of the factory, this thing came pretty capable as long as you have good traction. That's my biggest thing. I say if you do anything to a Jeep Cherokee and you just want to do a one and done, try to keep it as simple as possible, get a good set of tires that are a 29-inch tire, and you'll be surprised where a little XJ will go. But if you do a little bit of lift on top of that, the sky just becomes the limit, and then you can delete your sway bar on the front and kind of let it flex more into the fender wells. And right now with the 30.6-inch tires I have, with the 2-inch, probably a little less than 2-inch lift I have total, it's just enough where you're just barely rubbing the fender flares, which I'm hoping to fix, like I said in my last video, hoping to add 1 more inch and get that kind of fixed where it doesn't rub near as much as it used to. So right now, that's pretty much the story of Lil Red Six. She's been through hell a couple times. In fact, I forgot to mention, I thought I had piston slap at one point in time, so I bought a TJ98 rebuilt 4.0, and then when I pulled my original 99 4.0 out, my dad goes, well, there's your problem, and I had a circle crack around the crank on the flex plate. So it was just turning the flex plate was like a big spline shaft turning the whole flex plate like a big gear. And, you know, since I had the 98 motor that was rebuilt, I decided, you know what, let's go ahead and try it. So I now have a 98 TJ block in my 99 Cherokee, but I still have my 99 waiting in the wings. If I ever need a spare motor or if I decide to build a stroker, I got it ready to rock. So that's pretty much the story. I mean, it's got a lot of small parts from other vehicles on it. Like my transcooler is a Ford Escape 2008 transcooler that I picked at the pick and pull. So there's one example. I mean, I got WJ parts on it from my original WJ. Just small stuff like the compressor and just various other things. It's so hard to remember nowadays. I mean, I've been doing this for almost a decade. So almost 9 years, I should say, which is almost a decade. And that's pretty much Lil Red Six's story. Outside of just, she keeps getting drove. I daily it pretty much everywhere. And I've made it adapt to whatever was the next challenge or circumstance that it needed to be adapted to. And I continue to just adapt it a little bit more when I need it. I'm a function over form guy. I just make adjustments when they're needed. So, that being said, I hope you enjoy this story about Lil Red Six and where she came from and how I've treated her. And I'm currently at 231,000. Dang it, I wish I got it on camera. 231,003 miles. So you guys actually just witnessed it cross 231,000. So thanks for being here, I guess. And you know what? God bless you guys. Take care. And I'll see you guys later. Your friend St. Chris. Out.